thank you very much, Chairman Franks, for holding this hearing and for inviting me to participate in it. I also thank you particularly, Representative Conyers, for your remarks on the importance of tone, because I do think it's extremely important that we demonstrate respect to each other in the middle of this issue, which can be passionate on both sides. I'm going to let Mr. Whalen explain the history of the Department of Justice's failure to defend DOMA, and I'd like to do two big things today, very briefly. One, explain the value of protecting marriage as the union of one man and one woman, which is, of course, not only in the federal policy under the Defense of Marriage Act, but is also the law and the policy of 45 states. And secondly, I want to address briefly some Federalist concerns that have been raised by Congressman Nadler, among some others. Marriage is the union of a husband and wife for a reason. These are the only unions that can create new life and connect those children in love to their mother and father. This is not necessarily the reason why individuals marry. This is the great reason, the public reason, why government gets involved in the marriage business in the first place. Because let's face it, the idea of a government license to be in a romantic relationship is a somewhat odd idea. What makes sense of it in our Anglo-American tradition is the recognition that there is something special about unions of husband and wives, and that there is a unique public interest involved in bringing together male and female to make and raise the next generation. How does marriage protect children? I think it's important to note that it is not the case that there is a package of legal benefits that protect children and improve their well-being. From what we know from the social science evidence, marriage protects children to the extent that it increases the likelihood they are born to and raised by their own mother and father in a low-conflict, enduring relationship. We know this because, frankly, children do not do better when their parents, under remarried parents, than they do with solo mothers on average, which means that it is not simply a set of legal benefits that we can transform. It is the extent and way to which marriage as a legal and public institution helps to protect this particular kind of family that it helps to protect children or fails to protect children. This deep orientation of marriage to what we now call responsible procreation is not only the consensus of most of human history. Marriage is a virtually universal human social institution. It changes in a lot of ways, but virtually every known human society has recognized that there is a unique need and a special interest in bringing together men and women as husbands and wives to make and raise the next generation. It's also deeply embedded in U.S. law. You know, you can go back to where the Supreme Court said in 1888 that marriage is the foundation of the family and of society, without which there would be neither civilization nor progress, right up through one of the four rationales for the Defense of Marriage Act, which President Obama's Department of Justice specifically rejected, exercising in effect a kind of line item veto over the law retrospectively. But Congress, in passing DONA, said that civil society has an interest in maintaining and protecting the institution of heterosexual marriage because it has a deep and abiding interest in encouraging responsible procreation and child rearing. If we accept, as DOMA explicitly does, that this is a core public purpose of marriage, then treating same-sex unions as marriage makes little sense. If in fact marriage as a public and legal institution, as the majority of courts have recognized, is oriented towards protecting children by increasing the likelihood they have a mother and father, then same-sex couples do not fit. And conversely, if same-sex couples fit the public definition of marriage, then marriage is really no longer about responsible procreation in this sense. Same-sex marriage cuts marriage off as a public idea from these deep roots in the natural family, and over time will re-educate the next generation that these ancient and honorable ideals underlying marriage no longer apply. Both gay marriage advocates and opponents have recognized that same-sex marriage will change the public meaning of marriage. I would like to add, what about other families? Marriage has never been the only route to a family in our culture, and I believe we have an obligation to help children in all families, regardless of family forms. But we cannot help children by ripping up the roadmap laid down by history, common sense, and the collective wisdom of human experience by redefining marriage. I believe that gay marriage will not only, same-sex marriage will not only redefine marriage as an institution, it will redefine the relationship between traditional faith communities and the American tradition as well. The heart of the idea driving same-sex marriage is that there is no difference between same-sex and opposite-sex unions, and if you see a difference, there's something wrong with you. You're somehow akin to a bigot opposed to interracial marriage. That idea, if it is embraced by law, particularly through the courts, will have consequences for religious liberty that are profound. How do we treat bigots who are opposed to interracial marriage in this country? Well, we don't. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of time. I will just
actually, Ms. Gallagher, the light malfunctioned there. It went from green to red. It wasn't supposed to do that. But if you'll just conclude your remarks.
I will briefly wrap up. If you follow that analogy, you will see the profound consequences. The federal government frequently defines marriage, parent, family, and domestic relations differently than some states. Federalism works both ways. And if we were to say there was a problem with a federal definition of marriage as one man and one woman on federalist grounds, we would also have to accept that 4 judges in Massachusetts could force the federal government to acknowledge polygamous marriage as well. Thank you very much.